9:46 this morning. We've been talking about President Trump's tax and spending cut bill, the one big beautiful bill, now a reality since he signed it into law on July 4th. And this legislation does so many things, right? So we're going to try to cut through some of that. We know the tax cuts, they were set to expire at the end of 2025. So that's been extended, but it also adds an estimated over $3 trillion to the national deficit over the next decade. And with tariffs already making headlines as well, we want to see what North Carolinians and South Carolinians need to do. We're all wondering, where's the money? So we brought in Mark Henry from Alloy Wealth to try to cut through some of the fat here, Mark, and share how this is going to impact our wallets. Mark, thank you for joining us here in the Live Impact studio. First of all,
thanks for having me on. I'm so excited.
Always great to have you. Let's start with the basics. What is the purpose of this act? What were lawmakers trying to accomplish?
Main reason for the act was tax cuts, to make them permanent. Mm-hmm. So that was a big deal. They're set to expire. Most economists believe that would have been devastating. We would have seen huge tax increases that could have slowed the economy. This roll that we're on right now, which is a good thing, would have abruptly ended, and a lot of Americans would have been scrambling to figure out what's going to happen with their paycheck because it's already tough enough, and now we got more taxes. So that would have been an issue. So that was the main goal and purpose. And guess what? Check, that one's solved.
Okay, so what of the trade-off then for the $3.3 trillion deficit, but now $4.5 trillion in tax cuts?
That's right. So some people want to worry about we're adding to the deficit, which is already extremely high and stuff. However, by most people's accounts, it really looks like tariffs are working and we're collecting a lot more money than we ever have. If, along with extending these tax cuts, we now continue to create job growth and businesses grow because they know what the taxes are going to be, that could result in a real win, and that's what we're all hoping for.
Look, we're talking about real savings for households. What does that translate to?
Well, so some of the parts of this that really affect people the most would be, let's talk about the younger workers.
Okay.
They got the no tax on tips passed. Now, just when you say no tax on tips, there are things that always go into these things. So there's certain amounts and things like that. But for most all workers that get tips, they are now not going to be taxed. They can report them like they should have been doing, and they will not be taxing them on their tips. Also, overtime bill was passed. So again, up to a certain amount, but now your overtime is really going to help you. So it's going to allow those hourly workers to go be that best employee, get the extra money, and keep it. That's the big thing, keep the extra money.
Right, okay. And then how about, we're talking about new tax breaks, other tax breaks.
Yeah, well, Social Security. So, why can't it just be simple, Jane? Where,
Yes.
Hey, no tax on Social Security. That sounds really good. I love that. You've already paid tax. So for all the seniors, that's what we wanted. Did we get that? Yeah, kind of. So what we got instead of no tax on Social Security is a $6,000 deduction that for workers 65 and older who earn more than $75,000 a year as a person, or up to $150,000 as a couple. So what that means is it's going to cover the tax on your Social Security up to a certain point. When you earn in retirement over $150,000, all of a sudden it's phasing back in, and you are going to start paying tax on Social Security. So this made it a little more complicated, but overall, big win for retired seniors, especially those living on Social Security with a modest income.
Okay, so with the
big win.
All right, so we're reading it here on text. I always feel like the words are a good visual. So $6,000 deduction. This really for Americans 65 and older.
That's
Good
right.
benefit for this.
Yep.
All right, but they have to make a certain amount.
Have to make less than a certain amount
less than a
before
certain
we
amount.
lose it. That's correct.
Okay, and then
But it's a big deal. It's a good thing.
Absolutely. We talked about offline here about SNAP benefits and how that is affected. People are talking about my benefits are going to be cut. What's the caveat with that? A lot of people worried about
the reductions in Medicare and SNAP spending and stuff. Well, the reality is they want to make sure that people claiming food stamps should be getting them. So in other words, if you're simply getting them and living on them, but you're an able-bodied worker and you're not even trying to work because you're getting enough money without working, that's not going to work anymore. You're going to have to work a certain amount of time to continue to get your benefits, certain number of hours and things like that. And so most people, I think, can get their mind around the idea that, yes, if I can work, I should. And so I don't think that's a big thing. They also talk about the people that potentially could lose Medicare benefits or Medicaid benefits, things like that. Overall, when you really dig into it, it seems like those would be people that maybe shouldn't even be on it at all. So a lot of discussion there, but more to unpack. One of the biggest things, though, not necessarily for North Carolinians and South, because our taxes are not, they seem high enough. Let me be very clear. They seem very high.
Sure.
But in comparison to New York, to California, they are not high. I think everybody could agree with that. So the SALT deduction, when you say
Yes.
SALT, what in the world is that? That's the state and local income tax deduction. It was capped at $10,000. It's been raised to $40,000. So that's going to apply more to moderate, medium, or higher household incomes and people that live in a bigger house that pay a lot of tax. It won't affect as many people in North Carolina because you could have a very modest home in New York and you need that deduction because your taxes may be $20,000, $30,000 on a simple home. So that's a big deal. They wanted that to go for 10 years, to be extended for at least 10 years. They didn't get it. It only went for 5 years. But it's a big win for a lot of the northern states for 5 years.
Okay. Mark, let's talk about tariffs, right?
Yep.
Because that's part of this and how
Yes.
inflation needs to be tempered a little bit, right?
No question.
And so with the tariffs into effect, you said that it is paying for a lot of things already and that there is benefit. But for those naysayers or doubters that this is going to help us in the near future, what do you say to them?
The proof's in the pudding. We haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen it completed. We still have many, many nations that have not signed agreements. We have some that are arguing about them, and so it's still in process. But what we have seen so far is they are working. That does not mean when you go and buy something, you're not paying too much. I am not saying that at all, and it is definitely still hard. But I personally see signs of this really starting to work and what it could do for average Americans. And I really believe we're going to get to a place where this is going to be like, okay, not what I thought, this is actually going to work. And I definitely want to throw in, too, the savings account for children being born.
Yes, please.
That's
I was going to ask
big
about
deal.
families and younger families, right?
Because a lot of families need this. You know, our president, dislike, reality is he wants people to have children. He wants to do more for traditional American families that want to have kids. So now we've got a one-time deposit of $1,000 from the federal government for those children born in 24 through 28. That's a big deal. It will also be available to any child who is a U.S. citizen under the age of 8. Parents will be able to contribute to this savings account. It will be invested in a diversified fund that tracks the U.S. stock market. Earnings will grow tax deferred, and qualified withdrawals are taxed as long-term capital gains. So this is a huge thing for young people. It's going to help them save more and give them another reason to have beautiful children.
All right. So for families watching right now or parents that have us on in their office, how should they prepare for these changes that are already in effect? And should there be some tax planning strategies?
There definitely should. So if you're a hourly worker, I think you need to start planning for what that could look like. Make sure you're doing your withholdings correctly. For instance, you may need to adjust them. Now, the goal is, at the end of the year, I always tell people, I would like to see you get a refund of a couple $1,000s or have to pay a couple thousand. Maybe it's $1,000 for some workers. But the reality is you don't want the government to keep too much of your money during the year because that's money you could have put to work paying down debt, student loans, and other things. But you also aren't prepared to write a big check at the end of the year.
That's right.
So evaluate your situation closely. Talk to a qualified person about, hey, I get a lot of tips. I can claim them now. How does that affect my tax and my withholdings? What should I be doing?
Okay. Anything else that we should know about today?
Have confidence and faith. We're going to get through this. It's challenging for a lot of people right now. There's parts of this new big, beautiful bill or big, stupid bill, whatever you want to call it. There's parts of it that I love. There's parts I don't. Imagine that in life.
Right.
But here's the good news. Wake up tomorrow, go crush the day, and put a plan in place to get where you want to be in your life.
Okay, Mark Henry, as always, I feel like you are leaning towards a positive outlook on this situation, though.
Yes, I absolutely am 100%.
All right. Mark Henry breaking it down for us, this one big, beautiful bill, a little bit of, well, a lot of the impact that we're going to see and already seeing right now. Again, so much to cover with that. So this is just the beginning of so many changes. All right, good planning makes for a good life. Thank you, Mark Henry, for planning on coming out here in the Live Impact studio.